The regular council meeting of the city of Cross Lake, November 8th. Let's stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. First on the agenda is the approval of the additions to the agenda. We've got two minor additions. We've got some additional bills for payment and a request from Amy Wanabo to postpone her request. So with that, is there a motion?
So moved. I'll second that.
Motion is second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next public forum. Action may or may not be taken on any issues raised. If council requires more information or time for consideration, the issues will be placed on the agenda of the next regular council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Anybody have anything? Come on up, Heather. Well, I'm kind of curious what you're doing here.
Good morning, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm here because it's been about a year since I sent a letter to you after, I'm Tyler Gardner with Pequot Lake Sanitation. You did the hauler's license fee about a year ago.
Yep.
And I sent a letter, basically, why is it so much money? And I've got, if you want a list, I have a list of a bunch of area, cities, communities of what they charge. And it's $1,000 here in Cross Lake. And do we know how we came up with that or why it's so high?
Did we answer you when you were in here a year ago?
I didn't come in, I sent a letter and I heard no response.
Okay, sorry about that.
If you'd like.
So if I were to say we have a lot of overhead here, would that satisfy you?
No. And I don't expect an answer tonight it's the first time you guys have heard of it probably, so I'll leave these with you.
Okay, that's other communities, other charges,
Yep.
that's a comparison.
Just for reference, and you guys can do with it what you wish. I just request that it's looked at again and possibly lowered if that's an option for you guys.
Okay,
Okay.
Thanks,
Where do you
Tyler.
want me to leave these?
can you leave them with Shar there? Sure. Did you make copies of them? So we each have one?
Yeah.
Did you make them? Yep. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Tom?
Tom Swenson, 35533 Sandpoint Drive. Unless I missed it on the agenda, I don't see where the council has scheduled a special council meeting to review the 2022 budget. At the last budget meeting, I had a bunch of recommendations. I never did hear back on any of them, but the comment was made, we'll wait until a few months from now when we get more of the year-end figures in, and then we can look at it again. I would request a budget meeting be scheduled tonight so it gets in the paper so interested people can attend instead of when you just send out a special meeting notice to those on the list. The general public doesn't really know about it. And I'm not sure, what the plans were. I hope it's not that we're just going to go to the truth and taxation hearing with what was done at the last meeting, because we all know that's a done deal by the time it hits the truth and taxation meeting at 6 o'clock, and then you're supposed to approve it at 7 o'clock. So I think with what's going on nationwide with inflation, and we very well could see $4 a gallon gas by next summer, which is going to be an impact on both the residents and the businesses in town. And I did spend some time looking at the October receipt and expenditure reports this afternoon in comparison to what was on the last budget sheet, and I think there's there's fluff in the budget that needs to be cut. So my request is that a special meeting be scheduled to get up-to-date figures, if there's any revisions in what the staff is proposing, if anything has changed since the last meeting. But I think the citizens should have an opportunity before the Truth and Taxation hearing for one more go-around on the budget. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming up, Tom. Anybody have any comments on that?
I do, if I can comment.
Sure.
What our intent was is just this week, or late last week, the mini summary report came out from the state's PRISM system, PRISM, P-R-I-S-M. And what that system does is it looks at all the market values and tax data for all the communities around the state. Now, what should happen is in this week, usually by about the 15th of November, the new all the levies statewide are summarized, so we can look at how we stack up to other communities. So what I would suggest is that probably the week before Thanksgiving would be an appropriate time to schedule another budget meeting.
Tom, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Well, I'm glad he's proposing, a meeting, but don't get wrapped into, I did it for 33 years. It's a game you can play about tax rates versus the tax dollars being levied. And there's all kinds of things that go into the formula for the tax rate. How much did valuations go up? How much new construction was on there? So, just trying to compare to other communities, that's nice if we can show, our tax rate is lower than other communities. But what I'm after is, I think you need to look at dollars being spent, and if you can lower the levy from last year, great. If you can't, and we need it, that's fine too. But don't approve the budget based on, well, our tax rate went down, even though we're going to levy more money, because there's these formulas that you can play games with to make it look like, we're really doing a great job. We lowered our tax rate. Well, if your valuations went up substantially, you can levy more money and your tax rate will still go down, but somebody still has to pay that. So.
Tighten the budget, or tighten the belt a little, huh, Tom?
And to that end, what we try to do is we try to put forth the realistic budget. And the reason we look at the tax rates and the tax capacities is so we can see how that impacts the people paying the tax. And, the budget's based on what we feel, what the council feels we need to be successful in the next year to pay for the projects that you've scheduled to do.
So is there any place in here where we should set a meeting for it, though? I agree with you.
I think we should set it now so we don't forget later.
Yeah, okay. I just looked the week before Thanksgiving is the 17th, 18th. That's Wednesday, Thursday, I believe.
I know I've got meetings here.
Which time, do you know?
You said the week before, correct?
The week before
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
They're both 9 a.m. And I don't see Cheryl. Yeah, I don't see Cheryl here, but. She had a prior commitment. Yeah, but I believe we have agenda items for it. Okay. Yeah.
At the 20 week.
Let's do it the
They're 9
17th.
a.m. They're done by noon.
No.
The 25th,
Or the week before.
week before, I think Mike said.
That's next week.
Let's do it the 17th.
Wednesday, the 17th, at 1 o'clock? 1 in the afternoon?
And along with what Tom said, I'd appreciate if we go over the assignments too, because I want to take a look at that. Assignments, the designated fund balances. I want to go through that too.
Sure,
On
and
that day.
and I've provided you the details through August already.
I know, I want to look at them for November. So
So do we need a motion for that 17th meeting?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion that we hold the next budget meeting Wednesday, November 17th at 1 o'clock. And along with the budget, I want to make sure that we review the assignments balances.
Okay, is there
Second.
second, we have a second. Any other discussion on it? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
But I assume that that means then that if there's something we forgot to put in the budget, we can probably add to it?
You can't increase the budget.
Oh, I didn't say increase. I said add to it, so we pick up that slack and we don't just let it go. And we don't not have maintenance and stuff on our buildings again.
What do you mean add to it? You mean increase the levy?
I didn't say that.
Well,
They're
I
talking
guess
about
I'm not understanding. If you're increasing
Talking
it.
about taking fluff away. We moved the fluff to where it's needed.
Oh,
Am I, okay?
yeah. You didn't say anything about fluff. I'm sorry.
Oh, man, I guess I just rolled off of that.
Okay, so that's good. 1 o'clock, 17th. All right, who's next? Nobody's moving. We'll close the public forum. Next is the consent calendar. All items here listed are considered to be routine by the city council and will be acted on by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a citizen or council person so requests.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All in favor. Next, critical issues. Mike, I would think you're going to take off with this one and introduce
Sure.
Corey, I think. Okay.
So under critical issues, under item 1, I've asked Corey Boyer from our 4M fund consultant to come and talk a little bit about the 4M fund, what's going on with it. For those of you that don't know, the League of Minnesota Cities sponsors the 4M fund, and it's governed by the league. And what it is, it's a cash management and investment program for Minnesota public funds. 4M means Minnesota Municipal Money Market. And I've had a lot of questions, since we're wrapping up the fire hall and the city hall. How much money do we have left from the proceeds of the phone company? We talked about that back in July and August. It's right around a little over $2 million. And I think everyone has seen how low interest rates are and how low earnings have been. Just for a comparison, about a year ago, we were doing really well on our monthly interest earnings. Now this is net of any bond proceeds. For the first half of 2020, we were earning right around $7,000 a month on our investments, which was pretty good, even knowing that rates were falling. The second half of 2020, that dropped to about $3,500 because the bottom kind of went out as far as rates went. And they continued to drop. And the problem was we had funds invested in some longer-term things, meaning a year and a half, that were in that 2.5% range. And we didn't have anything to replace it with at those earnings. And so we thought it would be time to revisit that and say, look, there may be some other opportunities to do some longer-term things. And then just, this council hasn't seen Corey for a couple years. There's been, we had a pandemic in the middle of this, and so I wanted to give him an opportunity and maybe start thinking about how we can tie those funds up for a little bit longer time. Because remember, our cash balances and how we manage those impact what we get for bond rates when we go issue debt. So go ahead, Corey.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Again, my name's Corey Boyer with PMA Financial. I was going to go through just a brief introduction, I guess, of the fund, just to make sure you're fully on board with what the fund is, how it's structured, who are the different people involved with it, just to kind of give you a comfort level with that, and then touch on some different options that are available to the city now. As Mike mentioned, it's been a challenging investment market now for the last year and a half, and we're starting to see some change in the markets, and I just want to briefly go through that with you as well. To start off, and I know you have a copy of the presentation, so I'll be brief with this. You may have already read a lot of this information, but the first thing we like to point out is this is the League of Minnesota Cities program, the 4M fund. The League board serve as the trustees to the fund, so they sponsor and govern the fund. They've had, the fund was established back in 1987. And so it's been around a while. It's grown a lot over the years, added a lot of participants to the fund. PMA, we were hired in 2007 to do the administrative work for the fund. And so the administrative work is basically all of the day-to-day work that is going on with all the participants in the fund. So I think the notes mentioned now we have over 400 participants in the program. So we've seen a lot of growth with it, which is good. But again, with the market we're in now, it's been a challenge. And there's a lot of liquidity that cities throughout the state are dealing with, where they have a lot of liquid money, whether it be bond money, stimulus money. There's all this money right now that cities have, and there's really no place to go with it. So it's been a challenge. U.S. Bank is a banking custodian to the fund. We just like to point that out because they've been involved with the fund really from the outset, and they're doing all the behind-the-scenes banking work where we're communicating with your local bank when we're moving money. That all flows through U.S. Bank, and so we've had a partnership with them with this program for many years. When we talk about the program, there's really two different avenues with it, where we have pooled programs and we've got some individual investment options we can do directly with the city. So we'd like to touch base first with the pooled programs, because this is where you are pooling your dollars with every other participant, where you can take advantage of these different options. And so we've got the two money market pools that are available. Those are really designed for short-term liquid dollars. Cities use those a lot for just secondary liquidity, where they've got their local bank, where they're running payroll and AP. They have the money market pools through Forum, where they can move money back and forth as needed. In a normal market environment, the money markets are going to provide a little more yield than what you might get with your local bank. We've also got the term series pools, which is an investment option that allows you to invest money at a fixed rate and fixed term up to 1 year. And then we have our new limited term duration fund, which is, we just started that in April. That's more of an investment type of fund where you can place dollars. It's got a little longer focus than the money markets. So it's kind of like a mutual fund concept. The main thing to point out with all of these is that all of these are following Minnesota Statute 118A. And that's the same statute you as a city have to follow as far as how you're investing your public monies. We at the 4M Fund has to follow that same statute. And so it's really designed specifically to meet public entities' needs from a cash and investment management standpoint. So those are the pooled programs, and so you can get into those. Any city that's in the fund has access to those programs, can move dollars around as needed to meet their investment needs. But then we also have fixed rate options. And I won't go into a lot of detail here, but this really is tracking along with Statute 118A as far as what a city can invest in. And so anything that the city can invest in, we can offer that through the fixed rate programs within the 4M Fund program. And so the money markets kind of serve as the conduit where you have money in the money market, you can invest it out into a CD as an example, or an agency. When that matures, it comes back to the money market. Pull it back to your local bank if you need it, reinvest it. There's different options there, but all of this is again available to the city through its relationship with the fund. And I won't go into a lot of detail. Right now, the trickiest part with this market, what we found, there's a lot of CD options that you see up there. Really for the last year, banks have not wanted money. They've got so much liquid holdings within the bank. It's been very difficult to find banks in the market willing to take money, let alone give a decent rate. And so that's really been one of the biggest challenges with this market. We have a lot of programs available. It's just finding those banks to partner with to take these public dollars for our cities that we work with. So that's been a challenge, but we are starting to see a little bit of a shift there, and I think we will as we get into next year. And so when you look at it from kind of a maturity or duration target, as we call it, you know, when we work with cities, there's really buckets of money we're dealing with, whether it's short-term operating dollars, bond proceeds, capital project type reserves, core reserves, as we call them, which are dollars you know you're not going to probably touch for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever that might be. And so we kind of differentiate those dollars, and then we can utilize any of these programs to kind of invest those dollars accordingly. And so it makes sense to kind of have an idea of where your cash flow is, what's your forecast, and then invest to meet those liability needs. And so wherever that liability might be, where you want to invest, we can use these programs to help meet those needs. So a lot of different options available. very briefly wanted to go through it. Are there any questions at this point before I get into some other information as far as the 4M program and different options available to the city?
Just an example of what we did, when we sold the phone company, when the city sold the phone company, we had a big chunk of money, so we did put it through the 4M fund, and we started investing it. And what we did was we set them up in what's called a ladder, those of you that are familiar with investing. So we timed our major expenditures with when the investments matured, so we tried to maximize those earnings, and we had quite a few dollars tied up in that. And as those things matured, we transferred them over and we paid for things like the sewer plant improvements in 2018. And then more recently, the money we used for the fire hall.
Yep. And yeah, whether it's bond dollars, operating dollars, if it's bond money, generally it's capital project related. You've got a projected draw schedule, so we can invest to that. If it's operating money, those we can kind of run, projections on cash flow pretty easily there too. So there's different ways of kind of projecting out those liability needs and investing accordingly. A couple other items just in the fund, services that are available to participants in the fund. These are available at no charge to any city that's participating in the program. Mike mentioned the bond proceeds. We do a lot of bond proceeds management throughout the state, where cities have dollars coming in for whatever it might be, street projects, capital building projects, whatever it might be. They utilize the fund to help meet those cash management needs on the bond proceeds side. Plus, we can do some of the IRS reporting that's required with municipal bond issues for arbitrage, things like that. So those are services that are available to the city at any time with any bond proceeds you might have. And then the cash flow service piece. So out of our office in Albertville, we work exclusively with the 4M fund from a cash flow standpoint, where we can help a city project out any kind of cash flow forecasts, whether it's citywide or if it's a specific fund, whatever it might be. We can kind of work through that with the city, but that's a service that's also available to the city to help kind of project out what those liabilities are so we can invest to those a little more efficiently. When we set that up, like I said, there's no cost to the city, and this was something back when the league hired us. They really wanted to have some kind of value add type services that we could bring to the program to help cities of all sizes. We have cities, very large cities working with the bond proceeds, down to very small cities that just need help with some basic cash flow needs. So it's a nice program for everybody. So just quick, then I want to update kind of what we're seeing in the markets, just to give you an idea. And again, this in the world we live in, the public sector, it's very low risk, high quality, kind of boring investments, but it's structured that way for a reason, obviously. But like I said, we are starting to see some movement, and this report is one that we track very closely, the U.S. yield curve, or the Treasury yield curve, because this is really what is the benchmark, if you will, for a lot of the other types of investments that we work with. So when we kind of see what's happening here, we get a pretty good idea of what's happening with those other sectors that we might work with. So the gray line here shows what the yield curve looked like back at the end of 2000. So very flat, very little yield, the yield being that left vertical column, very little yield to gain even going out 3 to 5 years. It was just extremely flat. And again, very few banks participating in this program or in those terms as far as able to find much yield over and above what we were seeing with treasuries. It was a very flat curve. As we got into 21 and at the end of July, that green line shows it started to pick up a little bit. We started to see some movement with the treasuries. And then just in the last few weeks, it's really steepened. And so I think what that's indicating is that the market's starting to anticipate there's going to be some change here with rates. So it's starting to price in some of those expected rate increases into that yield curve. When you see it steepening like that, the market's anticipating rates to go up. So to us, that's a good sign, and it also opens up some investment options as you get into that 2-3 year range. We've seen some options come available where you could get some yield on some of these lower risk investments and meet some of your liability needs through whether it be with treasuries, agencies, or even some CD options. So there are some options becoming available. But the short-term rate is still low. You can see in that previous, the yield curve has not really shifted at all in up to a year. It's been just flat all year long. And so we track pretty closely what's happening with the Fed. They just got done with their most recent meeting, and they're starting to pull back or taper their bond purchase program, which has kind of been kind of propping up this market for the last year and a half since the pandemic hit. And so we are expecting, as that program winds down by June, July of next year, all indications are, barring any kind of other variants of any kind, who knows, that we would expect to see probably June, July, or third quarter of next year, they might start to increase that short-term rate. And this is kind of showing that projection as to what the estimates are moving forward for short-term rates. And so this is very important in the 4M program, because these directly impact those money market programs where a lot of cities have a lot of money right now with their liquid dollars sitting there. So we're hoping this does start to kick in next year so we can start to get some more yield back to cities in those money market programs. And so you can kind of see the projection. There's not consensus. You know, a lot of this, the Fed's focus is on inflation and employment. And we all know what's happening with inflation, the employment picture, wages are increasing. So I think they're starting to see the writing on the wall that it's time to start looking at raising the rates. And so I think that's what we're starting to see with these projections. And that will be helpful to everyone. So that's about all I had tonight. You know, like Mike said, we've worked with the city in the past on investing. This past year has been very difficult, but certainly, you know, with the statutes that you're required to work in and we're required to work in, there are becoming more options available to us that hopefully we can get some yield again coming back to the city and boost some of those interest earnings. So just a quick overview on PMA and what we're basically in Minnesota, we have the 4M fund that we work with and also the MinTrust fund, which is the school fund. And so we work both of those out of our Albertville office. But really PMA, this is our niche. We work with local government pools such as 4M throughout the Midwest. And so it's kind of a niche market for us. And that's really, the public sector is where we work. That's kind of what we're known for. So with that, I will answer any questions anyone might have.
Today, they talked about taking 15, I think it was $1 billion, the federal government, out of the market and not buy more bonds.
Right.
Will that affect
That's
what we're doing here?
Indirectly, yes. What affects it more directly is when they actually raise that Fed funds rate. Okay. But they probably aren't going to do anything with rates until they taper or stop that bond buying program, like the $15 million. So that was kind of step one. Okay. And I think the plan is every month or every quarter, whatever, they're going to keep decreasing that amount until finally they're no longer participating in that program. Once they're tapered completely out of that, then they would look at raising rates.
Okay.
Well, that's the expectation as we kind of look at markets right now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Corey, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Yep.
Okay, next, Alden and TJ, you got a little update for us?
Good evening. I'm Alden Hardwick. I'm here from the Powell Foundation. I have the pleasure tonight to present 2 checks to the city. So that's always a good time for us, a good time for the future across Lake. Just as a fill-in, a reminder, Powell's money isn't money that we have. It's money that comes to us. The community donates money. We have fundraisers. Many people want to support the Park and Rec and the library, and they can do through the Powell Foundation. They donate money, they can earmark it to a specific cause, and then that's what we'll do with the money. Last year we received over 230 gifts. Some were small, some were big, and we're pleased to get them all. And they allow us to do things like we're going to do tonight. The first check is approximately $5,500, and it goes for the new pickleball shade feature. And this has a really unique start. One of the pickleball players offered a $2,500 grant towards the new shade feature if it was matched. And it was quickly matched by somebody in the community that wasn't a pickleball player, but saw the enthusiasm of the group in the playing pickleball and thought, this is a neat organization that's going on in our town. So he matched the funds, volunteers built it, and now we have a nice shade feature. Due to the start of the individual that thought this would be a good idea. Second gift is $33,500. is to order equipment for the first phase of the playground equipment improvement project that TJ is going to present in a few minutes. 22 years ago, the Lions and others built this facility for us, donated the money. And think of the thousands of kids that have enjoyed this. They left a legacy at that time, something that we as a community enjoyed. I'm sure many of you have been there with your kids or your grandkids, heard the excitement and how much they enjoyed this facility. And you'll see the new plan, which is better, and this will hopefully be a legacy for another 20 years in the future. Now really is our turn as a community to establish our legacy in the playground equipment. And that's what TJ is going to show you in a few minutes. We plan over a series of phases to upgrade all the equipment in the playground equipment area. We have a really nice area now, but this will be better. We will build these again with volunteers, the staff, doing as economically as possible and as fast as the donations come in. I've received very good support so far. People have stopped and talked and heard about this. A neighbor came over and surprised me and gave me a $1,000 check towards it. I think our community will support this program, and I think we'll have a really nice facility. So it's our time here, and I'm asking the community, it's our time to leave our legacy. Equipment we put in here should last 20 years, maybe more, because it's better than we put in first. And just think of the large number of kids that are going to enjoy this. So we're really pleased to present the checks tonight as a first step. And hopefully we'll be here smiling again and tell you about the second step and the third step and the fourth step. So TJ has made up some. And I'd like to present these.
And I will say, last month you did approve the $33,538.53 for the phase one. Tonight there is a check from PAL for the pickleball shade feature that has yet to be approved. The donation from PAL Foundation for $5,466.09. So we would be looking for a motion to accept that donation.
All right. Alden, I just want to say I thank you personally for all you do for the PAL Foundation. You dropped out for a little bit and you came back in, and it's good to see you there.
Well, it's good to be back.
Yeah, good for you.
Thank you.
Okay, where do you want to take it?
Sure, we can take the picture here. Yeah, yeah, you can hold both of them.
Oh, you put
We can have the council in the background, yeah.
Hey, want to do that? Coming over? I don't know.
Wait, be ready to go in front of Eric.
Bouncing off my head.
Thank you, Alden.
Thank you, Alden.
So now, as Alden stated, I will kind of go through this phased approach, reiteration from the last meeting, the first phase. I'll kind of briefly go over that. We'll go through this, and then I will eventually look for a motion to proceed with this phased approach project, and we'll continue on and looking for donations and using any sort of funding we can to get this project moving forward and get something done over here. So again, phase one, replace original playground equipment. Again, PAL has furnished that funding for phase one. Here's an updated photo of what the color selection will look like. We just finalized that, and we actually did get the finalized plan put in on November 1st, and the deadline was November 2nd, and that was to secure the $17,000 grant. So we got that in, and we're moving forward with that next spring. Here's phase two. We're going to be focusing on the 5 to 12-year-old playground system. This was installed in 2006. We have looked this over with the salesman from Minnesota Wisconsin Playground and the League of Minnesota Cities. They have reassured us that the main structure of the system is in good working order. It's strong, it's stable. We don't have to touch anything with the metal posts and the foundations. we're only really looking at replacing the plastic features, the slides, the rock wall, or the rock climbing handles, and some of the other amenities. We might be looking at refurbishing the posts and railings, and what that would entail is just painting it. If we want to change the color, if there's a couple nicks here and there, we would just repaint that at a pretty reasonable price. Along with that would be replacing the swing set that was installed in 1999. It has seen its better days, and to reiterate what Alden has said, that has served more kids than we could ever imagine. It's really served its purpose for us, so we're going to look at replacing that. And then we're also looking at installing a shade sail over the 2 to 5 equipment, which again, not the 5 to 12 equipment, it would be over the PAL, or the one that the PAL Foundation has donated funds for. So this roughly shooting from the hip. We have yet to solidify any pricing from Minnesota, Wisconsin Playground, 40 to 45,000. Funding sources for this would be donations and park dedication funds. Any questions on phase 2? No? Working towards phase 3, we currently have a border that is decayed and it does not connect all the way throughout the perimeter of the playground. Phase 3 would be fully connecting the border and replacing it with something that lasts a lot longer, which would be plastic. Essentially, it's going to last us 30, 40, 50 years. So that would be quite a good investment for $2,500 to $3,000. I would be looking at park dedication funds for that project or that phase. On to phase 4, we would be looking at adding additional amenities to the playground. So it wouldn't be just a playground structure. It would be standalone equipment such as those climbers you see in the top right, the spinners on the bottom left. There is a lot of possibilities that we have. We could expand our current perimeter of the playground. We could expand our surfacing. It's pretty fluid right now. We're still trying to work some things out, but ultimately that is the rest of the plan through phase 4. And we're going to work with community members, the PAL Foundation, the park board to hopefully get this done in the next few years. So I'm really looking right now for the council's blessing to proceed with this phased approach. And we'll have more updates, obviously, as we firm some things up. But I just want to get some feedback from the council and let me know if I should hit the ground running with the rest of these phases.
TJ, do you document any of the use of the playground equipment?
It's fairly hard.
Yeah.
I guess I could go look back at our camera at the playground, but I have been at the park on Saturdays, Friday evenings, and it is packed.
There's no sign up, there's no anything, come, go as you please.
That'd be pretty tough, but in hearing the parents and how much they want to see these improvements, it gets used quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great what you're doing. Now we got to look at a hockey rink sometime.
We're getting there.
Okay.
So I'd be looking for a motion to proceed with this phased approach.
I make a motion that you can continue with your phased approach.
I'll gladly second that move.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
The good work.
You still need a motion to accept the 5,000, is that correct?
Yes, you guys never made that.
I'll make the motion to accept the 5,500 from PEL.
I second it.
Was it 5,500 or 5,000?
Oh, was
You
it
got the check
5,000?
right there. Yeah.
I thought it was.
$5,466.09.
Okay, we got a
Stand
motion
corrected.
and a second on that?
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, all in favor. TJ, thank you much.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the mayor and the council members' report. First on here, Mike has prepared a memo from the League of Minnesota Cities, but before we do that, Brad, at the last meeting, I believe we asked you for an opinion on Zooming and the number of times the Zooming in meetings.
I did send an email to the council a couple, 3 weeks ago. That was, I think this memo is probably much more thorough than my email, but this was an or maybe it was, but just a day or two before.
This was your email. This was attached to your
I
email.
attached to it, sorry. I had some written comments in addition to it. I couldn't remember if I.
Yeah, but this
okay.
was attached.
But the written email talked about which this memo does not, there was some talk about 60 or 90 days, if remember that, it was in my email, I don't have it in front of me anymore. That's about if you can remove a council member if they don't serve long, consecutively enough.
I think it should be read and recorded.
I can do that.
I think that's the whole.
So the memo that's in, or the memo in the packet straight from the league, which I didn't even remember I attached that. But then my email says, 13D01 subdivision 3 requires a public body must state on the record why it goes into closed. And we talk about a public body. That was a different discussion, I think, than this memo is about. And the second paragraph was about, the council brought up two different rules, the 3 per year rule and the 90-day rule. And I tried to clarify those are two different things. The 3 meeting rule is talked about in the league memo that's attached. And if you go on the back of page 2, I think is where it is. I just read it before. If you want to appear via Zoom as a council member, you need to do so in a public place. But if you, up to 3 times a year, you can avoid that and do it at home or some non-public place. That's the 3-day-a-year rule. Did I say that in a way that made sense?
It doesn't make sense to me. I was under the impression that if you are on a council,
Yep.
that you could miss up to 3 times a year. I thought that was just simply the state rule. That's not true?
No, not at all. So what I was trying to clarify is the 3-day rule is only related to trying to appear remotely. And you can't do that more than 3 times a year unless wherever you're at is at a public place that the public can attend. And it's noticed as a public, that where you're going to be and where you're going to be at, not just like I know some of you have done, because I can tell from your picture, you're at your condo or wherever you're at. That would not qualify, but you could do that up to 3 times a year and still meet the state statute. Not unrelated, but a different rule is if you, when I say you, a council member is vacant for 90 days for health or other reasons, the council could vote to call the seat vacant and try to fill that position. That's the 90-day rule.
Okay, and that is assuming that they're not showing up to meetings via Zoom, they're just gone?
No, that again, so to where they interrelate with one another is, how I would view it would be if you are attending meetings via Zoom, you've got 3 a year you can do from anywhere you want. After that, you're not qualifying as being in attendance or qualifying as participating in the meeting unless you are at a public library or somewhere like that in wherever you're at. So that it's a public, again, let me find it again if you want me to reference it, because I saw it a minute ago. There it is. So it says, meeting requirements, starting on page 1. Each location at which a member is present must be open and accessible to the public is one of the requirements. But then it says, right below that, in the next paragraph, however,
duty.
well, that's a different, military is a different issue, but however, a meeting satisfies the requirements of the open meeting law, even though a member of the public participates from a location that is not open to the public, if they don't do that more than 3 times in a calendar year, that is not open to the public. That's, and still in section 1 on page 2. So if a council member is following that, it'd be hard pressed for the full council to say the seat's vacant because they haven't been showing up at meetings, because they are if they follow those rules. But if they don't follow those rules in a 90-day period, the council could say they're not fulfilling their duties and we should vacate the seat and find somebody else. Am I saying that in a way that makes sense?
You are.
That doesn't mean you like it. I mean, that's a different answer.
This has been an ongoing struggle. I'll tell you, the heartburn I have about it is that I just believe that when you're up here spending taxpayer dollars, you should reside in the community. That's the bottom line. You should be here. Now, we all have things that we leave for, but extended period of time to leave for it, I think it gets you out of touch with what's going on. So, you know, we got to play by the rules, and if the rules say you can do it, you can do it, I guess.
I tried to show both rules that I think
Wasn't there a
guide
case?
what you're trying to talk about. Clearly, the state law does talk about a responsibility or duty to attend meetings, but they defined not being enough as 90 days by state statute. You might not like that definition, but that's what the statute says.
Wasn't there a case in the Minnesota legislature, Congress, Senate, whatever it was, that the guy lived in Wisconsin and he was working in Minnesota? This is not too long ago.
I don't doubt that, but I don't know what you're talking about. I don't.
Yeah, there was. Yes, there was.
But he lived in Wisconsin and he was representing Minneapolis? Something in that regard?
Well, there's a different rule which I didn't discuss because I don't think this doesn't qualify to our council, but residency is often argued about with lots of cities I've worked in, and maybe what this article you read is. I don't know what you're referring to, but
Yeah, I don't.
a different rule, different than the time rules we've been talking about, is if you want to run for office in Cross Lake, you need to be a resident of Cross Lake. That's, I don't know, it sounds like that's what the article's about, I'm guessing, because I didn't read it, but that's another set of rules about what qualifies as residency. I could give you a memo on that too if you want.
So
but-
6 months and 1 day, you're a resident, right?
Well, under tax law, yeah, I mean, I could look at it again under running for office, but I would assume they're the same. I haven't, I don't think I haven't heard anybody allege that any of you, I don't know where you all personally live, but no one's ever talked about that bringing an
Right.
issue, so I assume you all live in Cross Lake.
Okay, I don't know. Hopefully this is just going to go away and we'll quit talking about it because we keep bringing it up. I just have a hard time with being absent, not only for a meeting, but out of the area and out of the state for extended periods of time. But
Well, I think we should comply with the law and only allow 3 meetings, unless they want to post a public place that they're going to be in, and that we can't stop, but 3 meetings via Zoom. I guess we can make it more restrictive. We can just forget about that. Can we forget about the public place and just go with 3 Zooms?
Well, definitely, it's not a should. We shall follow the rule that if it goes to the 4th time that happens in a calendar year, if we're paying attention anyway and we're on notice of that, one of us in this room should be saying, hey, that council member shouldn't be allowed to attend or participate in the meeting because he's used up his 3, we're violating state statute. That's not a choice to go allow that to happen, would be my.
So if they're going to say they're at a public place, they have to post that public place in advance the same way.
Yeah, to answer that another way, if we're getting to 3 or 4, and if, I guess it'd be up to Shar, I would assume, to keep track of that. If they want to participate and it's the 4th time and they've used up their 3, it's not just zoom in that night and tell us where they're at. There needs to be some protocol or notice with Shar so that we know how to do that correctly when we set out the agenda and notice the meeting, because there's going to be a different set of rules that she has to follow to meet state statute, because we're going to have to say where this person's at and not just do it at the meeting, but ahead of time.
And then they have to state the reason or reasons for the appearance by interactive television technology also, right?
It talks about a couple rules there, yes. I could read them, but I mean, it's part of I think that was in the packet, so it's there, it's from the league. A couple more rules on the very bottom of section 1, I don't believe apply. One is military service, and I don't think any of you are qualified there. And the other one is when the governor has the statewide declaration going, but that's not now. It might happen again, but right now that doesn't apply.
Well, I think it does say there that they have to give a reason for not for using Zoom,
Yes.
why they have to use Zoom. It
But
does say that.
I think if they just simply say I'm south for the winter, that's a reason. I mean, that might not be something that some of you like as a reason, but that is a reason.
But that has to be stated every time.
I
And the
agree.
and if they want to use the public
Or they're sick,
meeting, they
or-
have to,
Yeah,
they have
no,
to
I
let
agree.
us know.
The rules are there and we should follow them.
I don't know that we need a motion to follow the law, but
Well, other than it's not easy for us to, I wouldn't assume we all know every law there is to know, so it's not a waste of time to go through this because we do have some
Right.
members that have wanted to appear by not just this current council, but past councils. So the council and staff should know those rules so that we can kind of keep on it when this comes up every winter typically for our community. Because it's starting to get cold.
Well, it's even more than the winter, but yeah.
That's the most
Yeah.
common example of it.
well, I just think if you're filing for council and get elected, you should be at the council meetings. That's just my feeling about the whole thing.
Okay, so how are we gonna, what's the motion gonna be for this? Keep track of meetings? I mean, what are we trying to achieve with the motion?
Well, Marcia's comment was, I don't think we need a motion, that's up to you guys. I mean, you could direct staff to, when I say staff, I think Shar, to try to keep more of an intentional log, because it's not something that you would naturally think of, like, oh, I wonder how many meetings we've done by Zoom. At least I don't think you've done that. I've never thought of keeping track of that before. So that would be a request,
Make a motion to document attendance at
so
council
that
meetings?
we're following the state statute properly.
Yeah,
I don't
so
think
that
we've
we're
really
following-
done that before, so that, I think that would be the motion if there is a motion to be made.
Okay, so I'll make that motion. Make a motion to document the attendance at council meetings and to notify the council if there's some kind of an infraction or going over the amount or something.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion on it? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, all in favor. Hopefully, that's the last time we'll talk about that.
Aaron, do you want that back?
I've got it on my computer.
right.
Thank you. I just,
You just happened to have it with you. You were ahead of me. I should have had it with me too.
Okay, next on the agenda is a commission appointment. Is Matt Carlson here? I don't know Matt Carlson, but Matt has volunteered to be on the Public Safety Commission. So I make a recommendation to him that we allow him to be on the commission.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion, questions on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I have a high-tech final payment for City Hall. What do we do with the final payment for City Hall? Are they done?
The only thing I'm aware of is we're waiting for a couple screens from Anderson's, and that's really about it. Now, the drinking fountain is a different issue. They showed up today and they looked at the wall and left. I'm not sure what they did.
But we haven't paid for that yet.
We haven't
either.
paid for that.
How about the doors? Are they all,
The doors are fixed.
Doors are fixed.
the sign isn't done, but that's kind of another issue.
But the sand and everywhere coming through the
Pipes, water?
water?
Everything's working?
Yes, all the plumbing's been working. Yep,
Everything's working?
yep.
Then let's pay it and be done with it.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
By the way, that was $11,064.35.
Okay, Mike? Oh, hold it. Short-term rental. Ordinance discussion.
Yep.
This was kind of something I brought up here. This was, somebody passed this on to me. This is an ordinance that another town, and it might even be Duluth, did. What are we going to do about the short-term rental? This is kind of going to run over into multiple different things. There is supposed to be a committee. Have you officially heard from that committee at all? So it's, please. Well, can you come up and identify yourself?
My name's Steve Spencer. I was at that meeting that you held at the park there. I am part of that board, and we are going to have a meeting this week, Wednesday or Thursday. We've had some emails going around the Facebook page. It's a closed group right now, but this is going to be our first meeting together to get together. We have topics to discuss. I think we're all going to kind of get a direction and hopefully get some answers with some of the concerns that were brought up.
Who is chairing that committee, or who's in charge of it?
Unofficially, we have Stacy Blue, who's started the Facebook page and sent out the initial emails. There's a Greg, he's involved pretty much on it too. And then there's probably about a dozen of us.
And your meeting is when?
It's either Wednesday or Thursday this week.
But it's not open to the public?
Correct.
Did you say it was a closed meeting?
Right, yep, we're meeting as a group right now. Like I say, our Facebook group is even closed. We want to kind of get a baseline before we open it up for discussions.
Okay, and as long as it's not a city meeting, is that okay? I mean, we can't stop them, right? Can you invite me to that meeting?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to go to it.
Sure.
Okay.
Will do.
And I will bring this was passed on to me, and I put it into our packet for discussion today, but I'll bring this with,
Okay.
you know. Maybe
If
it's
you
a
have a copy, I
baseline.
would love a copy of that as well.
Yeah, you can have this one.
Sure.
Or take Aaron's.
One of the things I'm going to ask you to put in there is that cannot supersede HOA association bylaws. It's like, but the one I'm in, it says that there cannot be rentals, short-term rentals in that association. And so you'll get a lot of flack from a lot of people because it's good size.
Right, yeah, we'll respect that.
Thank
So
you.
did this, I just have a couple, did you guys prepare this document?
I personally did not, I don't know
Where did it come
anything
from?
This
about it.
came as an email to me from a citizen. He said, Dave, here's a format that you could go off of. And so I sent it to Shara, and I asked her to put it in the packet.
Oh, okay.
I really don't know.
I found some flaws in the language in here.
I'm not
Want to
aware of
know
this.
about,
I
or
don't
don't
know
you want to
nothing
know? I
about
mean,
this
this
one.
is, I'm just going to tell the council that, okay, there is no mention of, like it says in paragraph B here, that this thing is consistent with the terms of the City of Cross Lake Comprehensive Plan to continue the allowed use of private vacation rental homes in identified zone districts. There isn't any mention of this in our land use table.
Okay, but
Period.
this, just so you know, this didn't come.
Well, I know.
As any kind of
I'm just
final
giving them,
document.
I'm giving them. And then
Yeah.
the only thing that we do allow, just so you guys know, is bed and breakfasts are allowed. And the only way they get a bed and breakfast permit is a conditional use. So when I read this, I said, well, why would you let the Airbnbs, the Verbos, the HomeAway, et cetera, just apply for a license in the city when we're making bed and breakfast people go through the conditional use process and they pay $500 to get that permit?
Do we have an active one here in town?
Oh, we used to have one down
Not that that matters, but
Island Lake, I
I think
think.
it still advertises that it's bed and breakfast. It's right on 66 up there. But I don't know if they do it anymore.
And then there's, I mean, there was comment about parking. There is some language about parking for bed and breakfast, said you have at least 2 to start with, plus 1 for each bedroom. But I didn't know where it came from.
Yeah.
And that's, I think we have to be careful that we're treating similar businesses the same, is all I'm saying.
And I guess what I would kind of like to say in regards to that too is we want to support the county in this ordinance.
Right,
You
and
know,
right now,
I mean, that's
that's where our
important, I
permit
think.
fees go.
So whatever happens in Cross Lake, hopefully will happen in Ideal and Mission and every
Right.
place else. So, you know, that's why we got to work with the county.
Okay,
But,
Thank
great.
you.
Well, have Stacy or somebody email me or tell me
Sure.
where that is. I'd like to come, if that's
Okay.
all right.
Thank
Great,
you.
thank you. Okay, that's it. Mike, you're up.
All right, thank you. The first item under my report is the annual comment on Cross Lake from Moody's Investor Services. Now, what Moody's does is they're a bond rating agency. They look at the credit worthiness of the city, they look at our financials, how we spend money, how we budget, and how much debt we have and how much cash we have in the bank. And what this report is, I look at it as very positive, and it shows that Cross Lake has a very good credit position, and its AA2 rating is slightly stronger than its median rating of A3 for similar U.S. cities. So what that does is that helps us get good rates and competitive bids when we go out for bonds. So it's for information for you. It's done every year, and they look at a lot of different things that make our community what it is today, okay? So you don't need to do anything with it. It's just for information. The next item, under item 2, is a resolution establishing procedures relating to compliance with bond reimbursement regulations under the Internal Revenue Code. Now, at our last meeting, we approved a project to go forward, accepted a bid for the clarifier project. And what this resolution is doing is authorizing us to reimburse ourselves with bond proceeds when the time comes to issue bonds. Now, the reason we're asking for this is because it's likely we'll have another bond issue when we do the sewer improvement project and potentially the road project. This allows us to reserve that right to issue bonds in the future when we make the decisions on those other two projects. And the reason we like to do this when we issue bonds is, as you know, it's expensive to issue debt when it comes to bonding, and it's a lot more efficient and cost-effective to issue one bond and then bifurcate the proceeds to each project. So this allows us to issue bonds up to a year from now. Now remember, we did the same thing with the fire truck. And so what we've done is we've used the engineer's estimate, which was real close to the actual bid. It's $566,000. We just rounded it up to the nearest thousand. And the way the statute reads, if you start paying for hard costs and you don't have this resolution in place before you issue the bonds, then you can't reimburse yourself with bond proceeds. It doesn't mean you have to. It gives you the ability to do so.
Can you also group projects together? Could we have 3 projects and take one bond out for them?
And that's what bifurcation means when you issue bonds, Dave. So what this does is it allows us to reimburse ourselves. So we would likely issue bonds in the March, April timeframe of next year. This allows us to get going on the project now and start paying for it, because this is a project that really needs to be done over the winter months, correct, Ted? In fact, you've got a meeting set up fairly soon to talk about pre-construction and timing and when that's going to occur. So it's likely in December, January, February, this project will probably be done before we even issue the bonds to reimburse ourselves for it. Pre-con is Wednesday at 10 a.m. Yeah.
So did bond counsel provide you with this resolution?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
So we need a motion to approve.
I so move.
What's your motion, John?
I make a move that we do a resolution establishing procedures relating to compliance with reimbursement bond regulations under Internal Revenue Code, period.
Okay.
I'll second that.
In a second, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, item 3 was removed from the agenda. We left the materials in there so you can familiarize yourself with the ordinance as it exists today. So I'll move on to item 4. This is a memo from Sourcewell, and every so often they elect their board of directors. And the information I provided to you, we're in what's called Sub-Region 4, and if you go to the second to the last page of this, all the regions are listed and which cities or schools are in that region. And what this is, it's your opportunity now to nominate either yourself or one of your other council members to get in the running for a board member for Sourcewell in this next round of elections. So if you're interested in doing that, the position description and expectations of that position are listed there, and the required qualifications. And there's also a board of directors nomination form. The requirement is you're an one of the elected officials of one of the participating entities of which we are. So if you want to do that, the option exists for you to do so. Okay?
So what do you need a motion for?
I don't need anything. It's just informing you that if you want to
Okay, it
be.
says on the thing
Yep.
that you need one, but you don't.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, on the agenda it says you do.
You can make a motion to nominate someone, or you can do nothing with it. It's really your choice.
Does anybody want to make a motion to that? All right, we'll pass.
All right. The last item is our annual audit engagement letter from Clifton Larson Allen. And they're looking at getting us on the schedule for this winter to do the 2021 audit. And I just need approval for that to move forward and start them getting along with their work. Their fee this year is I think it's $26,750 compared to $25,500 last year. So I need a motion to accept
Anybody
that.
want to make that?
Move that we approve the engagement letter for audit services from Clifton Larson Allen with
$750.
$26,750.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Commission reports, public safety. Eric, are you going to take this, or Chip, or no? So I got to do it?
Yeah, you two are supposed to do it. You recognize the chair.
All right, what's the first thing here? The ordinance and function of the Public Safety Committee. Last time we did this, we had a couple issues, and actually, Marcia, I'm going to pin you down. You had a couple issues with what we were doing?
I think that was Dave Schrupp.
Oh, was it, Dave? Was it you? Oh, I'm sorry.
I do, do you want our issues now
Well,
with the new one?
we're trying to clean it up so that
Okay.
it works, so that's all.
I guess I would like to see number 6 taken out of there, that the commission wouldn't be conducting interviews and stuff for the police chief or the fire chief. I think that's the supervisory department head, and that the city council should take care of that.
Okay, and Chip and Eric, I'm just going to open it up to you. If you guys want to respond to any of this, do it, or we'll just move it on.
Can I comment?
Sure.
I mostly agree with Marcia. I think, let's just say that Chip leaves and then we have to look for somebody else. I think there might be people on this group, in this commission, that have more experience than we do. And it certainly wouldn't hurt to listen to what they say. But I do like, and I made some comments here, that when requested, that they may participate in interviews and make a recommendation for only those two positions, the police chief or the fire chief. But I did add a comment that the personnel committee will be guiding and running the process, period. It isn't, if they're needed, if somebody's been in that role on this group, I'm sure they're going to have some experience that's really important. But, as long as we leave it when requested, it's up to the personnel committee whether or not they want to draw in more people if it's harder.
I guess if the personnel committee wants to draw somebody in, they can.
Yep.
Why put in there when requested? Somebody's going to overlook that and run with it. So I would just like to have that deleted, number 6.
So the other point of that, and we talked about it during the committee meeting, is that it is only a recommendation. They're not doing any hiring or anything, it's just a recommendation. That's kind of,
But they're even talking about spending money with an outside firm. I think we should just delete it and if the personnel committee or the city council wants to direct them, that's fine, but I don't know why we would want to put it in the ordinance.
okay. Well, yeah.
If
Go
I
ahead,
may.
please.
I would see this, and having been through interviews, like I said last month, for a chief's position, is I would see this as laying the groundwork for the council, so the council or the personnel committee doesn't have to do the legwork in the process of how you would find a new chief. And I wasn't at the meeting. I would have put that in my words at that meeting, that the Public Safety Committee should assist in the process and bring it to, whether you want it to be personnel or So that basically you guys don't have to do it yourself.
Just to interject, I've never been involved in your committee, but I've seen other communities where more of a specialized committee just scores or ranks each application so that they give their 2 cents how to rank it, but the hiring body, which I agree should be the council, still has the right to see all of them. It's not like they don't get to see the whole bunch, but if they want to trust that committee and only really focus on the top 5, not all 26, I think that's how I would label the legwork that Eric's talking about. I mean, they can score it before it gets to the personnel or council. That's not the only way to do it probably, but I've seen that before.
Well, you're required to rank, so.
Same thing,
the
yes,
applicants.
yeah.
I still want it out, but
So in the event, we got to look for one of the department heads, we'll call it that. It's just got to be under council direction, right? So we'll just remove number 6, unless you want to take a vote on it and see, I don't know.
We'll go through, see what else there is before we start voting on one item at a time.
Is there anything else?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Tom.
It's not up on the screen, so I haven't seen it in the packet,
Oh.
but in the last, last month when they put it on there, they had both the police chief and fire chief as members of the commission. Is that still in here? Because I think that's very inappropriate that they're voting on things as part of a commission. I think staff members are there to present input to a commission. You don't have Ted sitting on the Public Works Commission as a public or a voting member. You don't have TJ voting on the Park Commission. And I just think it's inappropriate to have staff on the commission as voting members.
I agree with that. Maybe we could make them ex officio members, non-voting. They can join in a discussion.
So it says 9 members. You two are 2 of the 9 members.
And North Ambulance.
And Kevin, yeah.
But you would count them as members. They're ex officio. They just don't vote. They can participate in discussions, recommendations, but they don't vote on any matters that come before the commission.
Mr. Person, do you have an opinion on that? I mean, is that normal?
Well, having ex officio members that's routine. It doesn't mean you should or shouldn't do it that way, but that's done all the time. So that's definitely within your realm of choices. Another layer, I guess, would be, I'm trying to compare and contrast with the other commissions. I guess all the other commissions are more they're in the end, they vote, but all they are in the end is, I'm not trying to minimize the commissions, but there are recommendations. In the end, the council has to ratify whatever Public Works or Parks or whatever, But I'm just trying to think of, if you look down at what their duties are, it's
Well, planning and zoning, for example, John or now Cheryl will not vote on that. That's up to the 5 commission members.
But that one though, there's more they do that's a final, or closer to final actions than other commissions. Each commission's not the same as I'm getting
Still
at.
got to
So-
move to the council for
So I'm
approval,
trying to
but-
think through, I do agree with the logic that if it's a final city action, the commission should not maybe be consisting of staff people that vote. But if it's purely more of a strategizing, I'm looking at the duties right now, especially if we take out number 6, they're not really doing things that aren't going to go through a different layer before a final decision's made. So that is somewhat tempered by that. I mean, so it depends how much power that committee has, is what I'm trying to awkwardly say.
I think you should if you take out number 5, which talks about reviewing the personnel and staffing requirements, and you take out 6, then they're not involved in that type of thing that we already have a process for. And I don't see any reason why they can't, as a group, make recommendations on things that are, it's public safety, period. you know? It's nothing to do with people that are working there. It's just the things in the city that they see or are asked to look at. I don't see any reason why Chip or Eric can't chime in on something and weigh in along with the other people.
Well, they can participate in discussion and make recommendations, they just can't vote on
Right.
making that
just a-
recommendation to the city council.
Vote on a recommendation, yeah. So what are you saying, take 5 and 6 out of there?
Yeah.
Okay, Marcia says take 6 out of there.
I said 5, but I still think they can vote. Will you take those out? I think it's fine.
I agree with Dave. If you take 5 and 6 out of there, I can live with the staff being on there.
That's,
But I don't think, when you look at review personnel and staffing requirements, staff should not be voting on, to make a recommendation on that as part of the voting commission. But if you take 5 and 6 out, it's probably fine.
They do that every day, Tom.
Not as voting members.
Well, how about the Personnel Committee? Personnel Committee is 2 council people and the administrator. So should the administrator be a voting person on that committee?
I guess that's how you set up that committee, but I look at every other commission and board in the city, and the staff is not voting members. Personnel may be an odd one, but
Well, we should look at personnel.
I think you're all saying the same thing. I mean, if you take out a couple I'm guessing right now where the consensus is, but if you take out a couple of duties there, I don't think the voting is an issue anymore. So I think it's an academic point.
good to go.
Okay, so anything else? Do we want a motion on this or approve it, taking 5 and 6 out, or where do you want to go with it? I think the Public Safety Committee is looking for where they're at.
Well, we'll take the minutes from this meeting and go back in January. I don't believe we're having a
No,
meeting in
so
December.
go back and revisit
We'll
it
just
and
go
come back
and
again?
revisit it and bring back a clean copy.
So is this the ordinance you want to, that you are presenting to the city
Well, the
council?
Public Safety Committee came, and they're trying to figure out what they should do,
So if we wanted to approve this with eliminating 5 and 6, we could do that right now?
I think what
I'll
Eric
make-
is asking is give the commission a chance to put their voice into it, and I agree with that.
Well, you want to establish whether or not we're going to be voting members or not. If we're not, then you take 3 out. Now you've got 6 voting members, which could end up in a tie. So your numbers are skewed. So it's, what do you guys want to do?
I think we just decided that if we took 5 and 6 out, you could be voting members. Isn't that what you said, Dave?
Yes, thank you. And you can run with this.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve this ordinance, eliminating number 5 and 6 as presented.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Yes.
So you're opposed? Yes. Okay. So you're going to take it back to the committee anyway and whatever, come back.
Goes back to committee no matter what. Well, they still have to have it so they can function.
Why no?
Char?
Well, I have a right to
Like you want to
vote.
say something?
I'm not saying you don't.
Okay.
So this is going to be published then in the newspaper. So just, it's done. It's done.
Okay. Okay. All right, Steve, this is your time to shine here. We had a citizen, one of our finest here. Can I just let you tell your story?
Sure. My name is Steve Rell. I have a lake place at 11844 Lake Trail, 103 to Lake Street, and the first right is Lake Trail. So I came here tonight to ask for the council's help to protect some of my rights and to protect the community's rights to a good environment that's not challenged by certain things that people do. My story is that my wife and I got to our lake place maybe about 10 days ago. And as we drove down Lake Trail, to the left, there's our neighbor's dock. And on that dock, there was a flagpole. And there was a 3x5 flag that had a 4-letter word, and the letters were about that tall each, and you could see it from 100 feet away. And the first letter was F, and the last letter was K. And my wife and I were offended by that. You know, we have grandkids that walk down that road,
and the second word started with a B and ended with an N.
Yes.
So it's a political statement that, yeah.
And so the next day, I called the Cross Lake Police Department and left a message, and then an officer called me back, and he referred me to Chief Lee, and I sent the chief an email, and he called me back, and we talked about it, and he pretty much said that Cross Lake doesn't really have a law or an ordinance of any kind that protects my rights not to see that kind of stuff in public. So, and he pretty much said there's nothing I can do. I mean, we can't go out. And so then I contacted the Sheriff Goddard, Crow Wing County Sheriff, and asked him if the county had any kind of ordinance that would protect my rights. And the sheriff said, you know, I've had that problem. I think he mentioned Crosby and some other places in the county where they've had that problem, but, you know, they don't have an ordinance either. So then I started doing my own research, and I found that all over the country right now, in cities and counties and states, lots of cities are trying to deal with this issue because it's not happening just in Cross Lake. You can buy that flag on Amazon or on eBay and have it the next day, you know, for $10. I did email Amazon too, trying to get them to take it down, but they never responded. But anyway, so I started to do research, and I found some communities on the internet that had taken a stand and had amended their sign ordinances to include prohibited signs. And I think it was Virgin or Punta Gorda in Florida. And the council decided that they wanted to pass this ordinance. And they said from the article, free speech is not absolute. That's when City Council passed the ordinance, which bans indecent speech on signs in public places in order to protect and enhance the city's residential character and its economic base. In my work trying to find some way to get help for law enforcement, to help people like me, I contacted some local community organizations, and one of the people that belonged to one of the organizations got back to me. And they said, no matter what an individual believes politically, there's no room for incivility. It demoralizes and weakens us as people and as a country. So, you know, so in my research, I found, I don't know, I think this will that. So this particular city, their ordinance is a 30-page sign ordinance. So they have a section, I don't believe the city has a section in their sign ordinance called prohibitive signs and devices. But and then in this particular section 11G or whatever, that's the language that they put into their ordinance. I think if you were to do that, in the definitions part of that ordinance, you have to amend what a sign is to include flags or whatever else you wanted it to be. But, so that was one thing I discovered. In my research also, I found out that Cross Lake does have a political sign ordinance in effect, which says that you cannot have a political sign up, I think it's 90 days or 100 days before an election, and then it has to be removed 10 days, within 10 days. I also found in the state of Minnesota, they have a statute called Prohibited Advertising Devices. And it says, which contains statements, words, or pictures of an obscene, indecent, or immoral character. So I guess I'm asking that, you help, give law enforcement a tool that they can use, because my fear and my wife's fear were when come summertime, when more people are back up here, we're going to see more of those signs. I mean, someone could put a sign like that up in downtown Cross Lake. That's not a good thing for the quality of life in Cross Lake. And I know that a lot of people that I talk to keep saying, well, it's First Amendment rights, freedom of speech. Well, I found an article. It's from the U.S. Justice Department, and it talks about a Supreme Court ruling on, and it says that obscenity is not protected under the First Amendment. So it becomes down to, are my rights of, peaceful enjoyment of my property more important than, someone else's? So granted, if you go online and you look, there's been a lot of cases, there's been judges that have ruled in favor, there's judges that have ruled against. So I'm hoping that the city can do some investigation and find out if we can do anything to protect our community from this type of...
Can I jump in here with you?
Sure.
Steve called me last weekend after he talked to Eric, I believe, or something, and did it. And I saw the pictures, I saw the flags, I saw the signs. He told me that he talked to Bill Brecken. There is a county board meeting tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what you were going to come here tonight for was, because I had volunteered to go with you to go down and talk to the county board, because I don't really think this is as much a city thing as it is a county thing. I think, where do you cross the Cross Lake city limit sign on the lake when you're flying your flag?
Right.
So.
And when I talked to Bill Brecken, or I emailed him, and then he called me, I contacted him, I'm not familiar with the process. I did not know if an individual can go to that county board meeting, and if there is an open forum section or whatever where...
Oh, you bet.
Yeah, and he called me back and he said, yes, there is. So I don't know, how much time they were going to give me, but I do plan on being there tomorrow morning because I think it was Chief Lee that told me, the Whitefish chain is not just Cross Lake, it's Ideal and Manhattan Beach, and there's some other towns and townships that are all around the whole thing. So
I guess the county board will be the first step in the direction of, and I'd like to ask the council if they support that. That's one question. Do you guys support
Yes, I support
trying to do
that.
something about this? Okay.
And I think if the county doesn't step up to the plate and do something, that the city council should put something in ordinance for Cross Lake.
I'm good with us supporting it and also with you going with Steve.
So I'm just going to go down there. Steve, you're very well spoken. I'm not going to step on your toes, but I am going to just let them know that we support it.
I appreciate that. I just, I don't know if I was more just disappointed.
Yeah, no, we've all got kids, we all got moms and dads, so.
Yeah, I think we had that under the bridge here in Cross Lake this summer too.
Yeah.
That they had to paint over.
So I don't think we need a motion.
There aren't ordinances to stop this kind of thing, because I don't think anyone thought that we'd ever be at this point where you would need an ordinance. The people just wouldn't do that.
Can you do anything under the nuisance ordinance?
Any way you're going to try to regulate that behavior, I would suggest you triple your legal budget.
Okay, it was just a question.
Your legal budget?
What is obscene? That he can find case law, because there's been about 10,000 lawsuits about it.
Well, in that ruling from the Justice Department,
and there's 55,000 other ones.
No, but it just says there's
it's
three
not
things
that black and white.
Yeah, well, it's,
You will get sued if you try to regulate political speech. I can't tell you when and how much it's going to cost you to defend, but you're going to get sued.
So even with the, putting it in the sign ordinance?
I'm not at all defending that. I agree with him that you should be able to state your political position without using swear words. I totally agree. But that's unfortunately not where this world's at. So if you try it, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't, but I would expect you would incur some legal fees to defend and argue what is obscene and what's not obscene. There's protected speech, free speech, and the highest layer of protected speech there is known to man is political speech in this country. So clearly, the ad, or not an ad, but the sign that he's referring to is, I think it's poor political speech, but it's still political speech, which has the highest layer of, and that's state, or not state, or county, or city. That's constitutional federal law that trumps anything we try to do as a city. So yes, there is pornography, there is obscenity, but there's famous Supreme Court cases saying, you know it when you see it when it comes to pornography, which means there is no definition known to man, and we've been trying for 100 years, that can label what is pornography. It's the same exact with obscenity. Doesn't mean we should just give up and just let people do what they want, but I'm just warning you that that is your future if you try to regulate it.
They support it, we'll go down and try it.
I think there'd be a lot of people that would support the city if they attempted to keep our community a little more mellow. So.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there might be a cost to do that, and that might be the right thing to do, but there's probably a cost to it.
So are you saying that, like, if somebody's flying political signs now?
I've seen, especially during the last presidency, all kinds of
but
what I would call
today,
obscene
if there's
political
some signs that are out, and they're not supposed to be, are they?
No, different thing, so I kind of cut off there, is regulating, not content, that's where you get in trouble. Regulating size, location, time of year, those things are much more defensible. But as soon as you start to get into the content of the sign, meaning the words used, that's where it gets hard.
And if you would go and investigate your existing ordinance about political signs, the Supreme Court has ruled that you can't have that either. So you have that in the ordinances, but the Supreme Court has ruled that that's not, you can't regulate that you can't tell someone to take down their signs for 100 days or 10 days. So, and you have that kind of an ordinance on the books, so.
We'll just go down there tomorrow and see where it goes.
Thank you.
Huh?
Need to make a
And I don't know,
fence ordinance, a new one? Dollar fences?
And I don't know how much, I don't know how much time they allow. I saw it tonight.
Just have your facts. As long as you keep their attention, they'll let you talk. If you start babbling, they're gonna shut you down.
I'll try not to babble.
So keep it focused.
The league will be getting questions on this too. And the league's the one that's gonna defend you if we get sued.
So what was your first part of that, Tom? The league what?
Bob said the League of Cities is getting questions on this thing.
Can we give them a microphone?
Like I said, the league's heard about this 1,000 times. So we had a store in Baxter that sold Trump signs, and many were just normal political signs. Many other ones were obscene, I would argue. And the league got all kinds of email requests, and there's all kinds of case law and memos they wrote to city attorneys like myself or councils. This was done during the last election cycle, and they basically all said, regulate at your risk. Political speech is a hot potato. That doesn't mean that's a political decision. You as a council can say, I don't care what it costs. Yes, the league will defend some of those cases, but it's going to be someone's going to pay a lawyer bill. Maybe not for the first time you regulate it, but
sometimes you got to stand up for your principles.
That might be true, but I'm just warning you that there's a cost to it.
What about the existing state statute?
State statute means nothing when it comes to constitutional law.
All right, moving right along. We have got Public Safety Commission memo from the Public Safety recommendation for parking at proposed event center. So there is a proposed event center on Schaefer Road and County Road 3, I guess it is down there.
Old Famous Dave's, so everybody knows.
Old Famous Dave's. And so what the Public Commission reviewed, what we came up with is that there should be no parking on either side of Schaefer Road from County Road 3 to Gendrew/Antler Road. So for that first block, no parking. No parking on the east side of Gendrew Road, 400 feet north of Schaefer Road, and no parking on the east side of Antler Road, 400 feet south of Schaefer Road. Schaefer Road is a narrow road in itself, and if they have 100 people or something at that, it's going to be plugged, so. That's a recommendation from.
Can I give you a little bit more information on it?
Go ahead.
This came up during the Planning Commission meeting when he was getting his permits. And Planning Commission referred it to the Public Safety Commission to see where it should land. A citizen brought it up, complained. And Schaefer Road is really difficult to get onto 3 from, if you're, especially in the wintertime, because you sit there and spin. But, so that's how it got to the Public Safety Commission. And from there, this is the discussion of where they landed. And the guy that complained is Dan. I don't see him here tonight. But he was very happy to hear it, and he said you'll also have a lot of truckers happy because evidently they use Antler to get to one of the construction companies. And he said they'll have a lot more room to maneuver.
Oh, you mean not to park on Schaefer Road?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a tight corridor. Yeah. So I guess we're looking for a motion to accept that. I kind of wish, we talked a little bit about having them do on-site parking, but we went away from that. Oh, you weren't there.
At the Planning Commission, they did talk about on-site and told him to make arrangements, so he had it, because he owns the 2 lots to the, what is it, west?
Right.
He owns those lots, and he was told to fix them up and get them ready to use in case he needs them for snowmobiles and trailers and that type of thing.
So these are the 3 recommendations from the commission. We could add that on-site parking on our motion, I would think.
I don't know. That wasn't requested of them. So they dealt with what the request was.
All right.
I assume if you can't park on public streets, you aren't forcing somewhere to park or they're not going to go. I mean, not that you couldn't do more, but.
Well, they've got parking there.
He's got.
No, but I'm saying that if you restrict parking on public streets, you are kind of forcing them to limit the size of the crowd or get a bigger parking lot because the police department's going to ticket people if they park on the road.
Yeah, but they can still park on the other side of the road. They're still parking.
Well, I'm saying by regulating the streets, maybe even add to it. I mean, you're in essence you're making them go on site.
Yeah, well, that's what we're trying to do.
I have a question.
Okay.
Aaron, it looks like the commission approved this, subject to these conditions?
It was approved. The permit, I mean, that's what the permit asked for, and they approved the permit, but they requested that we bring it to there for the parking, because they felt there should be something done.
This would be like the 5th item on here okay.
Yes.
So then we can bless the whole thing by adding the no parking and as
gotcha.
these 3 points, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, got you. Okay.
You understand that?
Yeah.
So we're looking for approval for this?
I don't know, is this the whole thing coming at us right now, or is it just the parking?
All we're looking at right now is the parking part of it. The rest of it is all approved, and that's fine.
This is.
It is all approved?
It's all approved.
Yeah, so it's just the parking.
That's just in there so you knew what the planning and zoning talked about.
Okay, and we don't have to reapprove what they do, okay.
I make a motion that we accept the recommendation for parking at the proposed event center that's down near, I guess, Schaefer Road, Antler Road, Gendrew. That's off of 66.
3.
Off of 3, okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion second, all in favor? Aye.
For your knowledge, you got a second one coming up shortly, too. And that's right on 3 also.
All right, next we have the fire chief here.
All right, good evening. I thought this was going to be in December, but we moved it up till November. The Fire Department Executive Board reviewed applications for the officer positions for 2022 to 2024. And in front of you, you have the officers that were appointed. Myself, Chief, Neil Lazar, Chief 2, Corley Dean, Chief 3, Richard Irish, Captain 1, Brian Schuss, Captain 2, Seth Wanaboo, Captain 3, and Jory Danielson, Captain 4. He's actually, I appointed him in place of Scott Johnson, who took a leave of absence as of November 1st. So he's actually up as a captain right now, the final 2 months of 2021. So I'm just looking for a motion to approve those positions. They all met the job descriptions. And
I'll make a motion to approve the positions, the officer positions for Cross Lake Fire Department.
Second.
thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, Chief Lee.
Good evening. Just like to circle back with the sergeant's position. And you'll recall at the October 11th meeting, we tabled bringing interim Sergeant Meyer to permanent status. City Administrator Lyonnaise and I discussed salary, and we decided we'd hold off on that. We need a little more time to let negotiations go through with the unions. So, but we would want to make that retroactive to September 1st when he signed on as sergeant. There was clarification from Jessica, and we can promote fill positions as needed.
Okay. Anybody have any comments?
Well, the salary shouldn't be decided by the city administrator and the police chief. I thought we discussed that at the last meeting, that it would go to personnel.
Yeah.
I recall that we were advised to meet and come back with a recommendation. That's what I recall.
When he was promoted to that interim position, this council set his salary at that time for that.
Yeah, but this makes it sound like you were going to decide on a salary other than what we had already approved as interim. No?
You approved an interim one
Yeah.
for it, and the whole intent was to figure out what that should be as we move through the negotiation process, so we're just waiting until that process occurs.
But in the memo, it says the city administrator and police chief. You shouldn't be setting the salary.
As I stated, I was under the understanding that we were directed to meet.
I think number one, the issue is, do we want the promotion? The salary, I think, is, as you said, is going to get directed as through the negotiations process.
That's based on the
correct?
negotiations, correct?
And that's through your group. Am I correct?
I'm just saying the memo says the city administrator and I discussed salary for the position and determined that more time was needed due to negotiations in progress. Does that mean that they're going to have control of that salary, or is it going to be the city council? It says it
Well, I
right
think
here.
that's what comes out of the union negotiations.
So Jake's going to go from one union to a new union?
Yeah, he would, right now he's with
Teamsters.
and he will go to MNP.
So in my world, that makes sense that you wait.
On the salary.
Yes. Yeah.
Right,
But
he's
the
already,
promotion can happen tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you want to say retro or whatever, that's,
and I think that's where you were at.
I mean, you want Jake to stay here, right? I think we want Jake to stay, so.
Yep. Absolutely.
Retroactive to September 1st?
Whatever is determined out of the contract for this year of that position's salary. If it's, ends up that it should have been more or whatever is decided on, then it should be retroactive for this year.
And September 1st when Eric Swanson left? Is that when he left?
September 1st, well, I guess September 2nd is when you,
Okay, but I mean, the first part?
Yep.
Okay, make a motion.
I make a motion, we promote him to the rank of sergeant.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Oh, do you want to,
Oh, I'm sorry.
do you want to make it retro to 9/1? Or are you going to?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine with
I
it.
think that's probably where it'll go.
That might come out later.
Yeah, it's going to come out through the negotiations,
Yeah.
what that date will actually be.
Right.
Yeah. That's going to go through the negotiations process.
Yeah.
So you're making it retro to September 1st
Well, so retro to December
from
1st
negotiations.
or through whatever negotiations says. Because I don't know where negotiations is going to start, what date they're going to use. I think that's what's going to.
Right.
Well, it makes sense to use 9/1, but it could change.
Yeah, okay, so we got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Secondly, when we promoted Officer Haynes to permanent full-time position, officer position, we started him at the starting step. And that was the motion that was made at the October 11th meeting. At the September 13th meeting, the motion was made to start and promote Officer Casanova at step 1. Both have about the same experience, and it's about a 65% or 65-cent an hour difference. So I'd like a little clarification on that.
And this is for what time period? This goes back to when? Or is it?
This would go back to the 11th, October 11th. Well,
When he was hired, full-time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but
So if we
union negotiations, again, now, we were told not to do anything, and we're doing all kinds of stuff here, but is this part of what we're not to, or is this?
Well, this is where you're
a
deciding where you want to start them.
This is
Different union?
This is an existing contract and it has existing steps.
It's the
So,
same, it's,
yeah. I'll make a motion, we approve.
Well, I think at the last meeting, or when we approved that starting salary, I think we asked if that's what you wanted, that we were talking about starting salary.
Right.
And that's what we went with,
Yep.
because you
Yep.
said that.
And I agree, but at the September meeting, was stated differently with Officer Casanova. And starting, step 1.
They're two
Who knew?
different things.
Yeah, who knew?
So do you want to do the other officer at starting, or do you want to do this one at step 1?
You can inform him. I think we should put Officer Haynes at step 1. It's 65 cents an hour difference.
And Casanova is at step 1 also?
Correct.
And that's the motion I made,
Okay.
to go with his recommendation here.
Haynes at step 1. Was there a second?
I second it.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, TJ, haven't we talked about this a couple times?
We'll discuss. So in front of you, you have a request for council action regarding a youth member on the Parks, Recreation, and Library Commission. Dave, I think you're recalling, we've talked about this quite a few times at the commission level. It's been floated around, never really stuck anywhere, but at the October meeting, the commission did make a recommendation to pursue the idea of adding a youth member to the Park, Rec, and Library Commission. And really what we're looking at here is to pursue the idea, get a motion from the council that you guys would be interested in adding a youth member to the Park and Library Commission. I don't want to go through the work and come up with all the provisions and look at coming up with an amendment to our city ordinance just to have you guys shut it down.
Part of your
So,
search would be go to the high school and look at government classes or
Nearby-
something, try to get somebody that's
Yep,
interested.
yep, nearby high school age kids to get them active in city-related meetings. And then also we would gain the perspective from the youth and what they're interested in and the trends of the recreation and the youth world.
I think it's a great idea.
I don't see a minimum age in here, and I think you should probably have 16.
That's where we're gonna, if you give the blessing to pursue this, we would come up with some sort of provisions to say a minimum age. This is what they can do on the board, this is what they can't do, if they're a voting member, if they're not.
I'm good with it.
I think it's a good idea.
I make a motion that we accept the recommendation to appoint a youth member to the Park and Recreation Commission, that we pursue the topic, and let's just see where it goes, but yes, that we pursue it.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Second by who?
Aaron.
Aaron? All in favor?
Aye.
That's all I have, thank you.
PJ. Okay. Personnel Committee. Do you want to do this, or you want me to do this, Mike?
You go right ahead, you're the chair.
We are going to accept the resignation from John Colstead, the Planning and Zoning Coordinator Administrator, who, I don't know when he did it, October 18th, I guess, he wrote his letter of resignation in. So do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion that we accept the resignation of John Colstead.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes of the Personnel Committee meeting. Jeez, I don't want to read all these.
Just read off your agenda.
Do what?
Just read off the agenda, what needs council action.
Recommendations to post-employment ad for Planning and Zoning Administrator, and to ask the council to consider what Sourcewell would look like if hired to assist staff. So let's discuss the personnel meeting a little bit. We just had a good discussion. Sourcewell does multiple of the communities in the area. And I don't know if they do Nisswa or Pequot, but they do 50 Lakes, Emily, Manhattan Beach, they offer it. So part of the discussion was to have them come in on a temporary basis to give us time to fill the planning and zoning position. We have a position we have to fill, but also to expand and look at what that position is going to look like. So Mr. Lioness wants to put an ad in and fill the position right there. I just think that with these VRBO issues, with other issues, septic, compliance and inspection, we might want to expand the title of whatever that position might be. So that's the way the discussion went.
But by bringing Sourcewell in, I don't understand what you expect to gain. That's my question.
Time to come up with a good description for our future. Time by 3 months. It's a temp. So I mean, I don't know. Mike was going to write up I don't know what his application is going to look like. What we're looking for now. It possibly is expanding, and we need to figure out what we are looking for. What I don't want to see happen is get another planning and zoning person in here, and then we have to hire somebody else to do the sewer inspections, and we have to hire somebody else to do the VRBO. So I think it's a good opportunity to just take a breath, sit back and see what we're doing. It's a perfect time of year for it. Cheryl needs help in planning and zoning, but we can do it on a temp basis.
I think we can advertise, but we should still have Sourcewell come in here and make a presentation and tell them what they can offer us for assistance on planning and zoning. They'll set it up any way you want it. They have it where you can have them come in and sit in the office. They can come and do site visits. You could set up the contract any way you want it. I mean, if you set it up, I think there are some communities that set it up where they only come in and provide assistance on conditional use permits and variances. I mean, whatever we're lacking right with this position being vacant, to get us through it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having Sourcewell come in and give us a presentation and explain to us how they could set it up for us to assist us with the planning and zoning. There are communities around here that are doing it. Like you said, Crosby, Emily, 50 Lakes, Pequot Lakes, Little Falls. I just think it's an avenue that we should investigate.
I guess I would ask the question, with the way planning and zoning is set up now under its current structure, what do you feel is not working that you'd like to change?
I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just saying we should get Sourcewell in here to give us some time to get planning and zoning applications reviewed and stuff. You can't do that in a matter of weeks. And maybe we won't get any applications. Then we do need Sourcewell to help us out.
But we won't know that
I don't
unless
see
we
any
try.
problem with having Sourcewell come in here and give us a presentation to let us know what they offer.
I think you better be ready for sticker shock, because they had offered when they transferred away from the county, they went and grabbed a hold of John and they offered him $85,000 a year to come here plus benefits, which would bring it up over $100,000 a year that he would make with benefits.
But Aaron,
He turned it down and took the job for far less.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be careful.
But wouldn't you like to know, Aaron?
but Sourcewell will tell us, they charge $55 an hour.
I want our employees doing this. I don't want another company's employees.
Why
doing
would
it.
you
I want
limit
here.
it to just Sourcewell then?
Well, that's a darn good point.
Can I
If
say
you're really going to do that, then you should go through a formal bidding process to comply with state statute.
Yeah?
But again, I haven't had an answer to my question from you. What is not working now that you're wanting to change? Is it purely about cost, or is there some other thing you're trying to do?
I would answer that, Mike, that the position is changing. There's potential for that position to be changing. And it's because of the sewer inspections. I know that that's an issue, whether we're going to do it or the county's going to do it. County availability is questionable. That's been brought up. And the VRBOs and follow on through with that. So there's other expansion parts that we could look at.
But some of those are, and I understand where you're going with it. I think there are a lot of people that are listed in the professional septic directory that may be retired, that we could hire. You mentioned part-time. Once we get our feet in the ground and we know what we need to do there, you could have them come work 2 days a week without going through Sourcewell. Anytime, the only thing good that Sourcewell is going to do is they're going to give you somebody. They're going to have to look in the same place we're going to look to find somebody. And if you don't like the work that the somebody does, you can just call up Sourcewell and say adios. But you don't want to be going through Sourcewell and Sourcewell guy after guy and spend training them. All it is at a training center. And that's, I think, what, if we're going to invest money here in full-time employees, we need to look at them ourselves, I think. But I see no reason to talk to Sourcewell if they happen to have somebody that's available right away.
They have staff.
Maybe they do.
They have staff. I just don't see any reason not to have them come and make a presentation.
I don't either. We're not
I
committing
think,
to anything.
but the motion is to run an ad too. So they're parallel efforts.
Okay, but now this union negotiation that we're in the middle of, I don't know how you're gonna come up with a salary, because you can't do that.
Right, and we talked about that
Whoever
too.
we find, if there's somebody that applies, that'll be a discussion that we're gonna have to have with them.
And the other part of that discussion at that meeting was, while we do recognize that, if you have a contracted staff, then you normally would not have an existing staff person report to a contractor. That just doesn't happen. So what the discussion was about at that meeting was, let's go ahead and get it posted. There's nothing to lose. Let's see what we can find. Provided we get some applicants, then that would be the time to work with both our labor attorney and the unions and do a one-off on what is an appropriate salary to fill that position for the need we're trying to fill. And that's the discussion that we had at the personnel meeting.
Okay, but in the meantime, we could talk to Sourcewell, they could come in and do a presentation. We could find out a little more about them. And the only reason I keep going back to them is they're very strong in this community right now, so they're here. They're driving through town every day. They're here.
I'll make a motion that we post an ad for planning and zoning administrator, and that we have Sourcewell come to the next meeting and present what they can do for us.
I'll second that.
Are you going to take comment, please?
Please.
Staff is concerned. Staff is concerned about what your end game is. Are you going to outsource all positions in the end? We don't know. We don't know what your end game is. You've had people service come through the sewer plant and ask them what services they could provide. And now you're doing it with planning and zoning. Staff is worried. I think you should spend some time with staff and tell them what the plan is.
Well, I've tried to. I have tried to, and actually, Mr. Schrupp, you tried to set up something to try to have a discussion about it with, and that ended up with the labor attorneys coming after me because of the threat I made to staff that I was going to fire them all. So the hostile environment very much goes both ways, back and forth. I don't know how to break in. I've been sitting up on this bench for 5 years, not welcome here 10 minutes of that 5 years. Okay, so I don't know where to break into that cycle to come in and talk to staff. I am looking out for the best interest of these people that put me up here. And if it means that we're going to hire a temp planning and zoning person to come up here from Sourcewell and get us through the next 3 or 4 months and help figure it out, that's what I'm going to want to do. Long term, heck no. We like to have our staff here. But it would be nice for that staff to be a team and work together and all support each other. And I know you blame it on me for being the bad guy of the whole thing, but there's a lot of that going around in here, okay? So I am more than willing. I put a lot of time in this. I don't do it because I'm bored. I do it because I got a passion for this community. But I'm not going to be pushed around or bullied or intimidated and told that I can't do something.
Dave, I'm just asking. I'm telling you how people are feeling. Cheryl is wondering if she's going to be training someone in from Sourcewell, and then you're going to get rid of her and let Sourcewell take over. I mean, that's how she feels.
Well, that's unfortunate. That is not any intent at all of any kind.
We should talk
And the
about it.
people services certainly is not any intent of getting rid of anybody at time. It's unfortunate that we can't just take a breath, grab a bottle of water, sit down and talk about stuff. But we don't seem to be able to do it. Everybody is so panicked about
Well, maybe
what
we should
my
talk
end
about
game
it
is.
first and then do it.
Char, I don't have an end game. I'm only one person up here, and nobody knows that better than me, okay? I'm only one person right here, and I'm outnumbered up here. Nobody knows that better than me either. So there is no intention of any kind. I'm trying to get things to work. I would love to build a team here. I've been here for 5 years. I would love to build a good, functioning team that would work together. And I don't feel like I've accomplished a thing in 5 years. It's frustrating to me. Okay, so if it's my fault, it's my fault. I don't think it is. I think it comes from a lot of directions. We have a second on that motion to put an ad in to have Sourcewell come in and do a presentation. Any other discussion?
So the ad is to find a full-time replacement for,
Not to find one, to advertise for one.
right, well, finding and advertising, you're looking,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And when are you gonna have Sourcewell come in?
Well, as soon as I
December
can.
meeting?
Yeah, as soon as I
Next
can.
meeting, December.
Just interview with them. What can you guys do? Maybe we could look into some recommendations from other communities that worked with them. Find out a little bit about them.
Okay.
Find out how much they charge, Aaron. It might be $110,000. It might be 50, you know, we don't know. But we should find that out on behalf of the community. So we have a motion and a second on that. Are there any other discussion points? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I didn't hear from you, Mr. Andrews.
I said it. I voted yes.
He said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
So can we address Cheryl's concern? Is that something you can take care of, Mike? As far as what I heard here, nobody's looking to replace Cheryl or get rid of her job. If you talk to her and
Yes.
explain that to her, I think that,
She's on right now.
Yeah, nobody's looking to get rid of you, Cheryl. You know, it's just too bad we can't talk. God, I come in here and it's like the pink elephant in the room. God. Okay, anything else? You were going off with something there. Sorry.
oh, I'm done.
Okay, we have another public forum. Action may or may not be taken on any issue raised. If council requires more information or time for consideration, the issue will be placed on the next regular council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Does anybody have anything? Doesn't look like anybody's coming up. City Attorney, Mr. Person, what do you have?
It asked me to update that shed that was in the right-of-way. I forwarded a picture to John, and I didn't know John was not going to be here anymore, so I'm not sure. Did I copy you, Shar? Anyway, it was a picture, maybe Cheryl got it, I don't recall who I copied, for sure John. Anyway, that the shed has been removed.
Oh.
So, done deal, but the city should have, or Cheryl or other city staff could just go by and verify if you'd like, because the picture came from Webster, but I trust that the picture was, it's kind of hard to prove a negative, but it was a picture that says, showing the shed gone. So I believe it's resolved. I have not personally tried to go by the house and verify that, but I trust it's.
What do they call that in computer where you can erase? Photo?
So is anybody going to go by and look at it?
I can do that.
TJ?
I'm sure it has, but it wouldn't be, yeah, if TJ could, that'd be great, just to kind of have something in the file that verifies that from our side of the fence, not the landowner's side.
Mr. Mayor?
Please, yep.
Before John left, he did go out and review, and he witnessed that it had been removed.
Oh,
Good.
Great. Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Ted. Okay, that's it.
Unless you have something else, that's all I had.
New business.
Got one.
Okay, good.
Maybe Ted should have stayed here. I'd like to talk about the land that's by the sewer plant that we might need down the road for the biosolids. And I would like to somehow formulate a motion that the staff contacts the owner and finds out what they can about selling it to the city and report back at the December meeting what they found out.
Can we have a little discussion before you make that a motion?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, what I'm trying to do is get it lumped in so that we can
Right.
possibly
No, I
stick
get
it in a.
But we had actually quite a bit of conversation about that, Ted, and wasn't part of it to pay him off and let him stay there for 3 or 4 or some time period? But so that we knew that we had the property secured for the future?
Yeah, I can make one comment before Ted gets to that. That was part of the plan. The plan was to do a little more longer-term view of what we're planning to do with the property at that location. Now, the reason that we need to be talking with the owner of that now is, you remember back at our budget, we had put a placeholder in the budget that said, yeah, let's go ahead and move forward with that and pay for it with levy dollars. But we went ahead and took that out of the budget and moved it over into a potential sewer project at some point in the future. Now, the danger in doing that is you wouldn't, and to pay for with bond proceeds, The danger in doing that is if you don't have the land, if you don't have it secured, you don't have an option to buy it or a way to get it, then it would be considered a ghost, it would be a ghost project, if you will, and it's really not tied to anything, and you wouldn't be able to tie it to any bond issue. So if you want to do that, we need to get going on acquiring it so that we can wrap it into one of the improvement projects. If you don't do that, then you're going to have to wait till the next project or find another way to pay for it. Okay, so go ahead, Ted.
I was just going to confirm what the mayor had said, that we had discussion on acquiring the property, letting him stay there for given length of time, and.
So nothing ever came of that, though? It
No,
didn't go on?
you gave us no direction to move forward with anything.
Okay.
We have not made any
So
attempt.
make that part of your motion, that whatever, you tie it up, however.
Well,
Well, I think Ted can come back with some negotiated agreement.
Yeah.
can you state your motion again, Dave? Because I don't remember it now.
You know, senior moment, all right. I'd like the staff to contact the resident that owns land by the sewer plant, I don't know the exact description, and reignite the discussions about the city buying the property from him. I don't recall the price that was provided by him before, or the details, but Ted can dig that stuff up, and if he wants to offer or discuss a similar arrangement,
I think we should get it appraised.
I think we did the last time.
Has it been appraised?
As far as I know, no, it has not.
I
We
didn't
went
think
off the
so.
tax value, what he was asking for, and what the council committee had said they were willing to pay. We were ways away, but, and
Was it
nothing came.
170 and 140? Is that what it was?
Thereabouts, yeah.
Well, this is your motion, Dave, so.
So I'm going to leave it at that if someone wants to.
I'll
amend it.
second it.
Okay, we got a second in discussion, and the only thing I'd do it is be creative, and are you gonna do it, or are you gonna do it, or Brad, who's gonna go?
The staff.
Okay. And just be open, we're not in a panic, nice to secure.
I think we should get the land appraised.
Well, we can, yeah.
Just, that's nothing wrong with that, but just to warn you, in the current real estate market, we're talking 4 to 6 months to get that done. So if time is of the essence, that's a bad idea, but if we're not in a hurry, then fine.
Well, or if he comes back and wants 350 grand for it.
I think, Dave, part of your motion is to find out what the property owner's intent is and see if
Yeah.
there's interest in doing that. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
And he might want to explain why we're doing this, so he has some idea.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we got a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Motion, all opposed? Motion carries, all in favor. Thanks, Ted. What else we got here? Mike, you got some more stuff, or what?
No, I don't. This was information Councilmember Vols had pulled a couple different times.
Oh, okay, so just take a look at it.
So could we get a updated bond issue payment schedule? I don't think the fire truck is on the schedule I have for fire equipment.
I believe it is on the one I provided you at the last budget meeting, but I can do that.
I don't think so, but
Yeah, I can-
if you could
yep.
update that one, that would be great. My question's on the August revenue statement was the $124,546.64. Is that the American Rescue Plan funds?
where is that?
What are you looking at?
This is August. You have it in your packet? Oh, it's 33,400.
33.
Is that the American Rescue Plan, the first half payment?
Yep, that's part of it, yes.
Okay.
And that wasn't on your questions you had sent to me earlier.
No, but I had pulled the revenue statement too. So I was wondering, are we going to designate that for sewer funds? Is the question to the city council? We can use it for sewer fund.
But before you do that, let's make sure that we have a project approved. it can be used for sewer infrastructure. And the way that the budget was built was to include that as the local share of the storm sewer. It can 100% be used for storm sewer improvements and enhancements to public utilities. So the way that we structured the budget when we did this was we made the assumption that we'd be able to use that money plus the grant money we're getting from soil and water conservation for the storm sewer, along with the balance of that next year. So we'll appropriately size the bond should this project go forward.
So you're gonna bond the storm sewer project anyway?
Right, but we're going to reduce the size of the issue by the amount of grant funding.
So where are you throwing the clarifier
We approved
project? I know we approved
tonight.
it, but can we use this money for the clarifier project at the
My
treatment
understanding
plant?
is no.
Why is that?
It was very specific, stormwater, storm sewer, and
Sanitation is in there?
items
too?
that are eligible under the Clean Water Grant Program.
Could you maybe check on that and see if we can use it for the clarifiers, the American Rescue Plan funding?
And why would you do that? I mean, you're either gonna, are you saying you're not going to want to go ahead with the 66 project?
I'm not saying anything, I'm just asking. We approved the bid at the last meeting for $447,000 for the clarifiers at the treatment plant. That project is moving forward now.
Right, I understand that. We can find that out, and we have up to a year to issue reimbursement bonds for that. Because we don't have to issue bonds in that amount. We can issue up to that amount.
But I'm saying that the American Rescue Plan funding, the $124,000, can we designate that towards the clarifiers project?
I don't know the answer to that tonight, and that's what you asked me to check on, and I will.
All righty. My other question was that capital outlay. We had,
What line?
it's page 7, and it's, the object code is 454. It's now 23,318, and I had asked about that, the 60,000, because when I asked about it, the August expenditure report showed that we had a deficit of $60,202.88.
And again, I explained that to everyone in my answer. When we adjusted the budget, we realigned the actual expenditures with where they were actually budgeted when we did the budget amendment, and I provided you with that information.
But now you came back and you had that reversed.
No, I
Yeah.
aligned it up with where the budget was, and I provided you a detail of the expenditures that match where they were budgeted.
I have the documents here.
What's the object code?
It's 450, I'm sorry, 500.
Okay.
I said 454.
Yeah, you did.
I meant 500. But the expenditure report that you gave us, when I asked that question, showed a deficit of $60,000.
And that's correct.
And now the one that you gave us tonight shows that 60,000 reversed out of there.
Again, that's what I presented on the second time we provided this. I provided this first in September. You had questions. So what I did, and I explained this to you once already, I realigned the budget. When the budget was realigned, we had to move the expenditures that were budgeted in those categories, so we had the appropriate tracking for it. And I provided you a detailed listing of that, along with another capital outlay, and showed you how they matched up.
But now, the one that you have for approval shows it back out of there. I just wanted to know why that was. You had it in there and then you
I
took
can't
it out.
explain it any different.
Well, it just,
Again, maybe you
Never
should
mind.
take my suggestion and come in and sit down with me for an hour and go through this. We can go through it, rather than having this debate here tonight. I really don't have anything else to say on it.
okay, I don't either.
Good.
Anything else?
I do have one more thing under old business.
Okay.
I still need those attorney bills returned to the
Yeah,
office.
I think about that often.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'll get them into you.
Okay.
Move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, let me second that, can I?
Sure.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.